We wrapped up the last section by naming just 3 of the main chemical or hormones that are related to the stress response in humans. So for this video lecture, we're going to move on and talk about the effects of stress on the mind, body, and spirit. Now, these chemicals that we've discussed are likely to be influencing someone who's responding to or is encountering some stress. So in reality, this response to stress begins to have an effect on our client's mind, body, and spirit. Stress will then turn on an alarm in the brain when our client encounters stress, and this will result in some type of action. And this might be in the form of a defensive move. Now, the nervous system is signaled and becomes aroused or on alert, and metrics like your pulse and your breathing tend to increase. So this fight or flight response will make muscles to become tense. And this response is really important because that's what's going to help us to defend ourselves if we need to in a dangerous situation. But the response is pre-programmed biologically, and most people will generally respond in the same basic way, regardless of whether the stress or situation comes out of something from work or maybe something from the client's home life. When a constant state of stress is left unresolved, the body tends to stay in what's known as a state of activation, and this increases the wear and tear on our biological systems. Ultimately, fatigue becomes a problem, but some even experiencing damaging health problems due to unchecked stress. In these cases, the body's ability to defend itself can be compromised, and as a result, the risk of injury and disease also increases. To take things one step further, to help you understand the effects of stress on the mind, body, and spirit, let's go back to where we referenced that constant state of activation in the previous slide. Now, while this response to stress can sometimes be useful for us, it's more likely to cause us problems due to being too long in duration or happening too frequently. Therefore, it's probably easy for you to see that constant stress plays a heavy role in the health of our client's mind, body, and spirit. Let's consider the brain or the mind and its reaction to stress. And when faced with stress, we know that the brain releases stress-related hormones. And during this time, it may not be able to operate as it normally would to be able to handle the stress it perceives. If we're also to be considering the effects of stress overall on the body, we would have to include such conditions related to gastrointestinal distress, cardiovascular problems, and even stressed out skin. The more difficult component of stress to analyze is the effects on the spirit. Spiritual stress is the eventual loss of our spiritual lives, or the part of us that hopes, loves, dreams, or even plans. Now, whether or not we have religious beliefs, we still have a spiritual side. And when we ignore our spiritual side, or when it's being bombarded with stress, this is an environment that allows stress to assert a negative effect on our client. To continue our discussion on the effects of stress, we turn now to the signs and symptoms of stress, and what would be the difference. Now, when you're coaching a client through stages of change or through stress management concerns that they may have, and they're able to convey to you their feelings, thoughts, or attitudes about situations in their lives that cause stress, at this point they're reporting to you their symptoms. So the symptoms will be what comes from the client, and you, the coach, will hopefully grow with experience over time and be able to now watch for the signs that your client may also show outwardly. And these signs would include maybe things such as, is your client fatigued? Or are they showing a lot of anxiety? Or does your client become frustrated easily? These are mood-based behaviors or problems that are seen in people who tend to be what we call stressed out. Often you will see sleep disturbances as well. Obviously, we want to try to encourage your client to get recovery sleep each night, but for improvements in this area, clients may need to do a lot of hard work to resolve barriers to their sleep hygiene. And sleep is so important that we could summarize it by saying that just improving sleep alone can change a client's entire stress profile. Now, the reaction of the body under stress may result in a lot of blood being pulled from internal organs and going toward working muscles for that fight or flight response. And when this occurs, we are likely to have gastrointestinal problems, and this would be something that's considered normal. But other people under stress can have stress-related headaches. Headaches can also result from bad ergonomics on the job, so you really have to know the source of the headache or the stress. It's normal, therefore, to see headaches, though, as a symptom coming from our client. Lastly, a coach may see that relationships for his or her client are disturbed, maybe among the family and friends or people in their circle. And this is another one of those signs that this person may have reached a tolerance limit to their own stress management. Hopefully, we have already established a strong connection between stress and the workplace. Luckily, early signs of job stress are easy to recognize because while small, they tend to be pretty abrupt. Some studies reveal that jobs considered more psychologically demanding while offering little control over the work process contributed to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease and certain musculoskeletal disorders. Now, since we know that these conditions don't arise out of the type of job that's being performed, we might be able to argue the case that this is coming from the stress of simply having this kind of job. Others believe that job stress will increase the risk of the development of upper back and upper extremity musculoskeletal disorders as well. Lastly, we might expect to see psychological problems tied to stress on the job, such as self-esteem, self-efficacy, or even thoughts of paranoia.